What's going on, Meat Mafia? Welcome back to another episode of the Meat Mafia podcast. Before we get rolling here today, we want to give a quick shout out to you, the listener. We are so thankful to have you on board with the Meat Mafia, and we cannot thank you enough for your endless support. Without you guys, we are nothing. So thank you so much for your comments, feedback, likes, subscribes, listens, everything. It means the world to us. With that being said, please go to your podcast medium's platform, give us a 5-star review. If it's not 5 stars, maybe don't give us a review. Subscribe, do the whole thing. We really appreciate that. And also, please go check out some of the links below. We have some great sponsors, and they are killing it in the world of food and providing great high-quality food for people just like yourself. Quickly outlining our sponsors, we have Holy Cow Beef, Wrich Ranches, Equip Foods, and the Carnivore Bar. These are all great products. If you want to learn more, go check out the links below. Without further ado, here's a word from our sponsors. Holy Cow Beef is a regenerative farm based out of Lubbock, Texas, with humanely raised grass-fed, grass-finished beef available for sale and shipment. Companies like ButcherBox source from outside of the US and Australia and don't specifically have the American Grass-Fed Association, or AGA, label, but Holy Cow does. They also sell chicken and pork in addition to their amazingly high-quality beef raised right here in Texas. Alvin and Ann Warren have overcome their own health struggles, and they have inspired us by the way they live their lives and by the way they raise their animals. So go check them out in the link below, and they also accept Bitcoin, so all you Bitcoiners out there, go check out Holy Cow Beef. Also, if you're in Colorado, go check out Wrich Ranches, a grass-fed, grass-finished regenerative farm servicing all over Colorado. He also accepts Bitcoin, so all you Bitcoiners out there, go hit up Wrich Ranches and get your beef today. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by the Carnivore Bar. The Carnivore Bar is an animal-based, shelf-stable product with only 3 simple ingredients: beef, tallow, and salt. The bar is inspired by the ancient traditions of Native Americans who needed to create pemmican bars to preserve meat for long-distance travel. The Carnivore Bar is perfect for animal-based athletes or busy people looking to follow a low-carb diet. It's easy to throw in a bag and take with you anywhere you're going, whether it's a workout, hike, or even packing it for a snack at work. I throw them in my triathlon bag and take down a bar immediately after working out. They're a fantastic product, so go check them out and use our discount code in the link below. All right, Robin, welcome to the Meat Mafia podcast. It's a pleasure to have you. Thanks for taking the time out of your weekend to join us. Excited to dive in here.
Thanks for having me. I'm sorry it took so many cancellations on my part to get here, but glad to be here.
That just means that that's good karma for a fantastic conversation. But we were saying before we hit record, we were just thanking you because we know that you put on KetoCon, which is an unbelievable low carb ketogenic conference based in Austin, Texas, and we were able to attend that for the first time this year. And for us being a new brand, it was unbelievable just the networking, to see the community. And for us with our podcast, we've probably booked close to 20 amazing guests just as a result of being in person. So I think your event really helped remind us just how important, getting in person is and having these shared experiences. So number one, we just wanted to thank you.
Well, thanks for being there. I mean, that's the whole reason we do it. There's really there's nothing virtual that you can do to replace making eye contact with someone and meeting them face to face.
100%. Yeah. And we know too that, in addition to coordinating and organizing KetoCon, you have some amazing vision for where you want to take that. There are a number of other ketogenic brands that you own. So I think to start this off, Robin, I think we'd love to learn a little bit more about your background, your low carb journey, and just how that brought you to the point that you are at today.
Okay. We only have 1 hour, right?
Yes.
Similar to both of you, I had health challenges. So when I was younger, I struggled with hormonal dysregulation and what I know now to be metabolic disorder. And I struggled with it for many, many, many years. When I was younger, I thought my problems would be solved just by losing weight, but that was really just the symptom. So once I discovered low carb, I had to discover it many times before it actually sunk in. So I discovered low carb first with Dr. Atkins, then with Louis Cordain. Do you guys know who Louis Cordain is?
I don't.
he wrote books related to low carb and fitness and endurance training. And at the time I was running marathons. And so I followed his work for quite a long time. And that was before really Finney and Volek came on the scene to write about low carb and fitness. But over the years, I kind of found myself in a place where I finally understood what it was going to take for me to be metabolically healthy and feel better. Unfortunately, I mean, I had gone through teenage years, 20s, 30s, childbearing years before I finally figured it all out. So there were many times I thought I had it figured out, but I was wrong. So thankfully, I got to this place. So at the time, when I was in my early 50s, I was following the ketogenic diet and lifestyle, and I was working for a large corporate bank, and I was looking for a way to take my skills that I had learned in corporate America and translate them into something else that I felt more fulfilled, where I was making a difference. And I had always had a passion for health and wellness and fitness, and I knew that there was a connection somewhere there for me, but I didn't really know what it was. And I just stumbled across in a Facebook group called, it was for Ketovangelist. I stumbled across a post where the admin or the owner of Ketovangelist was looking for someone to get involved in a startup with him. At the time, he had a few podcasts going, and he was really looking for a project manager. And I thought, well, if it's part of keto, I'm interested in hearing more. And one thing led to another. And about 60 days later, I jumped ship from corporate America and started working with the owner of Ketovangelist. And one of the things that we wanted to do was host a low carb keto event, because in this lifestyle, as you've figured out quickly, that you need to build community. You have to have people who understand what you're doing, and even if they don't understand it, at least they give you the freedom to live that lifestyle without trying to pressure you to do something else. And anyway, we wanted to build a community, so we started building KetoCon and several other brands at the same time. I just went off on a rant there. So did I answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's kind of how I found myself involved with KetoCon at the time.
What was it about the ketogenic diet for you personally that was kind of that aha light bulb moment that, hey, maybe I figured this out and this is more sustainable than all these other things that I've tried?
Well, I'd love to tell you that because it just made sense, but clearly I'm not that smart. It took recovering from all the physical symptoms that I had to really make me see, well, this is really what works. So, I mean, a lot of the problems I had were female hormone related, and then the weight loss related. But then also I had cycles of really bad depression. And I never understood that I could equate that to metabolic health and blood sugar regulation until I started doing keto, when I saw the difference in how I was going through cycles of life other women my age were really struggling with, that I was kind of sailing through. So I think that's really what made the most difference for me, is that how I felt. That's when I started really digging into, why do I feel so much better? And now I understand the science behind it, but at the time I didn't.
It's such an unbelievable perspective. And I think a lot of people, it's like the three of us have all gone low carb and have experienced the incredible benefits that come from switching to real foods. And you understand that feeling, but it's tough to communicate that to someone that's lived a life of just eating processed food. And you're kind of in this like perpetual metabolic ditch, so to speak. But one of the things we've had on Dr. Baker on the podcast, and one of the things that he particularly mentioned with the carnivore diet, very similar to the way that you mentioned, is that in the beginning, he was just hearing about people losing tons of weight, feeling amazing. And now he almost hears more about the mental health benefits of switching to carnivore low carb than anything else. So that seems to be perfectly in line with what you experienced too.
Yeah. I mean, Shawn, is part of his programs, I mean, he works with people every day who are experiencing the benefits from a mental health perspective,
Mm.
sometimes faster than anything else that they're trying to manage. The mental health piece, the lack of brain fog, immediately. There's another gentleman who also spoke at KetoCon. I don't know if you saw him, Chris Palmer, who's a
Mm.
psychiatrist that works with people with ketogenic diets and mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And he told the story of a woman who he treated that was schizophrenic,
Wow.
that he used a ketogenic diet to improve her well-being. And of course, this is something that only a professional would take on. And it was in a clinical setting. But the fact that if you can address something as serious as schizophrenia or Alzheimer's or type 2 diabetes just by making dietary changes, lifestyle changes, that's so impactful. And there's so many people that need to hear that message.
Mm.
It's staggering. I mean, when you're part of this space, it feels like everybody that you know gets it, but
Mm-hmm.
we are such a small piece of the overall picture. There's so many people that have no idea what they're doing to their bodies. And I mean, at this point in my life, that's kind of my mission, is to educate as many people as I possibly can, at least expose them to the idea. Because when you're younger, you get exposed to things and sometimes you grab it, sometimes you don't, and you hear it again 20 years later, and that's when it catches.
Mm.
But if I can just reach those people either by exposure or by really impacting them,
Mm.
then I'll feel like all of this was worthwhile.
Mm. Well, it's really cool to hear your story because clearly you're incredibly mission oriented, and the cause that you're promoting is helping save a lot of people's lives. And I think the community you're building is equally as big of a part in that, where it helps people kind of relieve themselves of the social pressures around dieting, like getting in front of people and being able to share your diet preferences and not feel like they're judging you because, hey, you choose to eat a ketogenic diet, animal-based diet. That's a huge win for a lot of people, because I think most people kind
Hmm.
of feel outcast when they start one of these more like
Sure.
fad-like diets. Is that something that you think about when you talk about promoting an event? Is that something that you have experienced in your past, where like the social pressures were just, a huge part of kind of the resistance that you felt?
Yeah. Um, so in the beginning, people who come to this lifestyle, some people feel compelled to talk about it as much as they can,
Hmm.
which I don't recommend when you first come into it. But the answer to your question, yes. So building the community, the goal of really of that in the beginning was really because we didn't have that. The only thing that we had was social media. We had a Facebook group, and there were a couple 100,000 people in there, but it's not the same as being together. It's not the same as like Thanksgiving dinner where everybody is, where like your diet preferences are really not part of the conversation because everybody's doing the
Hmm.
same thing.
Right.
So we're just trying to build that place where when you walk into the room, you know that everyone there is sharing the same passion that you do. It's kind of like going to Comic-Con or
Mm-hmm.
any other event that's topic focused. This is the ketogenic low carb lifestyle is at what this entire event is about. And there's a lot of components involved in that. So it's not necessarily that you have to be following a macros specific ketogenic diet to get value out of this. So there's a lot of people that come to the space, that come to the event, in particular, that follow a carnivore diet, that only follow low carb. They don't really even look at macros. The benefit to all of this is learning how your body flourishes in a state of ketosis, and how you get there is kind of independent for each individual. I think that most people end up, after years of doing this, find what works best for them and what they can maintain over a
Mm.
lifetime.
Yeah. And KetoCon is definitely a reflection of that. And to your point, there were ketogenic doctors that were there. There were carnivores. There was a carnivore panel. There were sponsors that were there that were advocating for ketone esters, MCT oil. There's all these different approaches and levers that you can pull to get you to that required end state. But to your point, I think that your conference really encourages the self-experimentation and the fact that everyone's diet and body is really different. And what works best for you might not work best for me, what might not work best for Harrison, but it's all about getting us in the same room and collaborating and figuring out what that best approach is. So we love that.
Right. And I think what works for different people is also going to be dependent on what state they're currently in, where they're coming from, how long they've been in a metabolic disordered state. If they're 30 years old and it will be a much faster turnaround for someone like that. If they're 60 years old and they're just starting to learn about health and wellness, they've got some work to do, and they're going to have to take a different approach to heal than someone that's 30. So then that's kind of the conundrum with all of this, is like how to meet the needs of the most number of people, how to have as much at this event that can meet the needs of the community as possible.
Totally.
How do you go about answering that question? Because I imagine as the person putting the event on, it's stressful having to deal with kind of growing the conference, but also making sure the quality stays high.
Yeah. It's how do I do it? I literally have a spreadsheet on my computer, and I make lists of topics that I want to include in the event. And then I look for people who can address those topics in a way that brings the most value to the attendee. And I also, putting on an event like this is incredibly expensive. So I have to find ways to work with people that can bring value, but are not looking for to be paid 10 grand to come speak. To be honest with you, I mean, that's the reality of it. It's a tough tightrope to walk. But I look at what the latest research is, what people are talking about, who attended last year, what their age range was, what industry they're coming from, and try to match it all together. One of the things that I'm doing this year is trying to find the right way to bring the mindset of emotional intelligence and self-responsibility to the journey of your health. And the reason I'm doing that is I see a lot of people that are looking for a quick fix. They want to do one thing that's going to fix everything, and they're relying on a personality or an influencer who says you should do it this way. That's what worked for me. And they throw all their eggs in that basket, but they don't address what got them to that place in the internal part. And so I'm looking to bring that piece in so that people understand that there's a lot to learn here, but if you're going to go home and implement all of this, then no one's going to do it for you. There's some self-responsibility involved there. So looking for a way to do that.
That's so interesting. It's such a balanced, holistic approach. And it's something that Harrison and I have talked about too, where it's like, the diet is such an incredible lever to pull. And I do personally think, out of all the anecdotal stories that I've seen, the data that I've seen, I think low carb gets people to their desired goals either the quickest or not even the most sustainably out of every dietary approach that I've seen. It doesn't work for everyone, but I do think that there is this tendency to just focus on the diet and not address these other emotional issues of like, okay, if you're 60, 80 pounds, 100 pounds overweight, what things were going on behind the scenes emotionally, psychologically, whatever, to get you into that state. So, I mean, if there's a way that you can bridge that gap, that would be unbelievable and very valuable for a lot of people, I would think.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one of the things that I didn't pay attention to early in my journey, and probably why I struggled for as long as I did, because I didn't that people weren't talking about that kind of thing at the time. It was, I was born in 1962, so I was in the culture of like, you just go on a diet, go on the cabbage soup diet for a few weeks, or get HCG shots for a few weeks or something like that. But anyway, that's something that I'd like to bring to the event this year.
What do you think it was for you about low carb that was so effective compared to some of the other diets that you had tried in the past?
What made it so effective for me is that I lowered my insulin. So when your insulin is low, when your blood sugar is low and your ketones are high, your insulin is low, you get healthier. And that's really the bottom line, is that's what happened. I did not know that all the snacking I was doing, or all the packaged foods I was eating, or whatever it was that I was doing at any given time, I didn't know what that was doing to my metabolic health. And I know that you both have done some endurance training, and so you can relate to this. When I was marathon running, we used to drink those goo gels. I never understood that I was supposed to feel better doing that, but I always felt like crap when I was running.
Oh, they're terrible.
Drinking those things. But I was doing what they told me to do.
Yeah.
So anyway, and that brings back a memory of mine. When I was in high school, I swam on the swim team, and our coach used to give us honey packets right before a race. So I down a few tablespoons of honey, and then a half hour later, go swim. So a half hour. During that half hour, my blood sugar went like this and went like this, and then I got in the pool and swam, and couldn't understand why was so exhausted after a race. So did I answer your question about low carb making a difference for me?
Yeah, no, 100%.
Well, the story is really relatable for us because we recently ran a 100K race, and we were using S fuels as fuel. And
I heard that episode.
Yeah, so we were we were trying to do it fat adapted. We did. It felt great for the first portion of the race, just because we didn't have that. Like we're taught to carb load, and there's something to that. But if you're eating a bunch of carbs right before the race and you're doing exactly what you just said, spiking your blood sugar and then crashing, you don't give yourself the opportunity to turn on your fat burning pathways. So we've done enough races at this point to realize that the goos are just not the way to go. So I'm glad that you share that insight with us.
Quite an experience.
Well, before we hit record, we were talking a bit kind of about the trajectory of what KetoCon has become. And obviously the past few years you had to do a virtual event, but it started in 2017, correct? And then you've grown it to what it is today. What has that process been like, just seeing the growth, and like, what's the vision? Like, where do you see it going from here forward?
The process of watching this thing grow has given me like a whole new life's purpose. So when I got into all of this, I was thinking, I'd love to be involved in something that can help educate other people. I had no idea when we did the first KetoCon that it would grow into what it is. I had hopes, but I really didn't. I didn't understand the potential. Then in year 2, we doubled the event from year 1. And the same thing happened in year 3. So by 2019, we had 2,800 people there and 100 vendors. And it was the biggest event that we had done, of course. And the keto community was just kind of 2019. Everything was kind of like at a swell. And Austin is a great city for events. So we had a lot of local people there. And then COVID happened. So then we were off for KetoCon 2020, even though we had already started planning. We pivoted to an online event at the best that we could. And then we waited until we got word that we could do the next event. 2021 was a possibility until we found out that the Palmer Center was going to limit it was really the city regulations, but we would have to limit the number of people that were allowed in the venue. And everybody would have to be social distancing. Everyone would have to wear masks, and the vendors would have to be further apart. And there was just no way that we could do that we were expecting 3,000-4,000 people. There was no way that we could do that in the event. There was no way we could control it. And we just didn't feel like we could do it in a way that where people would feel safe, and they would also feel that their personal choices were being respected. So we couldn't do it in 2021. Then we started focusing on 2022. And that's what we did this year, the best that we could. This year was, it was a great event in that the energy was super high. Like, the people that were there were really grateful to be there. They were excited to be there. The speakers, this is the first year I ever did an event where I didn't have even one speaker reschedule or cancel. The speakers were motivated. They wanted to be there. We did have some vendors pull out at the last minute because of sourcing issues or staffing issues or just financial reasons. But all things considered, at the end of the day, this year was a big success for us after being away for 2 years. And the momentum that we built to come back was really good. Now for next year, we've secured the dates for next year. And so KetoCon 2023 will be April 21st, 22nd, and 23rd at the Palmer Event Center. And for next year, our plans are, we're really just starting to work on this right now, but I can tell you that I'm looking to incorporate a lot more into the event than I have in the past. So there will be keto food product manufacturers there. There will be low carb food product manufacturers there. There will be technology providers and software providers, but I'm also looking to bring in other things that are tools, and the word you use with levers, to improve your health and wellness, things to bring into your lifestyle. So cold therapy, sauna, red light therapy. I'm looking for ways to bring all of that into this event so that people can be educated and make better decisions on where they spend their dollars, because as we all know, where you spend your dollars, what speaks, what talks. And just so that they walk away with things that they can grasp to take home and implement into their lives. So I expect, I'd like to see us grow back to where we were in 2019. So if we can hit 2,500 to 3,000 people in 2023, I'll be happy. I'd love to see it larger than that. I just don't know what's going to happen with people traveling and all the other things that are happening in society right now. But my goal is for us to have between 2,500 and 3,000 people there. We have vendor space for about 120 vendors, and we have room to grow. We've left some space unused within the venue so that we can add more vendors if things take off. And this year we're also going to have a podcasting booth. So we will be inviting podcasts that want to record live at the event to reserve time in the podcasting booth. So that will be happening as well. And book signings and meet and greet sessions with celebrities in this space. And 3 days. So it's a lot to pack in. We're looking at doing some workshops this year. We did an entrepreneur mastermind panel this year, which we will do again next year. And looking to incorporate some other panels into the agenda as well.
That's exciting. That's so exciting. And I know one of the things you said before you hit record is that 2023 is just going to be a great example for you to kind of take your own personal vision and be able to imprint that on the event even more. But even just the concept of the cold plunge and sauna, those two methods have been so important for both of us. Like there are even some days where I'm like, maybe I don't go work out, but I go hit the sauna for 20, 30 minutes. You know, my heart rate gets up to like 135, 140. That's basically like zone 2 cardio, let alone all the other detoxifying benefits of getting into the sauna. But a lot of people don't know that. So like to be able to not just focus on diet, but focus on these other lifestyle tools that are available to help you get those optimal fitness goals. I think that's just going to make the conference even better.
Yeah, that's my goal right there. Make it even better.
Yeah. And I think that, and I do think that eventually you will break those 2019 numbers. I think 2022 is a good indication that like we're almost around the hump. And I would imagine probably the most devoted low carb constituents were at that event. But I think people are starting to realize like all right, we need to get back in person. We need that connection. We need to be hugging people, meeting, combining ideas. And especially with the vision that you're taking it, I think that this thing is just going to continue to get bigger and bigger, which excites us.
That's very exciting to hear.
Yeah.
that you can picture the same thing that I picture.
What are some of your favorite products in the space or brands in the space that you've come across over the past few years of hosting the event? Because that was one of our favorite parts of walking around. It was almost like Disney World a little bit for people who are like get excited about this stuff, because you could just walk through all the booths and talk to all the brands. It was really fun. So
right. Oh boy. So when we first started doing this event, like the keto products were like very exciting to me, because there was in 2017 there was nothing keto on the shelves. Now I'm going to answer your question, but now we are on the completely opposite end of that spectrum, where there's keto sections everywhere and none of the products are really keto.
Yes.
So, and what I mean by that is I'm not talking about the nutritional profiles and the macros. I'm talking about the ingredients. So I don't know if you noticed this, but on our website, but we have a banned ingredient list. So one of the things that I feel really good about is adhering to that banned ingredient list. So I love all the keto food product manufacturers and what they bring to the table. I don't necessarily use those products because I'm 8 years into this journey. So I'm pretty much just a whole foods person, but I needed those products before.
Totally.
So in that bucket, along those lines, I'm really proud that those products are products that are not going to be detrimental to someone's journey if they're new. If they're new to all of this, if they utilize any of these products, it's not going to hurt them. It's not going to, impact their blood sugar, that kind of stuff. Or it doesn't include ingredients that are detrimental. So there's not like seed oils in them, that kind of stuff. So in answer to your question about my favorite products, you put me in a hard spot here.
it's like
there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. But I can tell you that at KetoCon 2023, I spent a lot of time at the Certified Piedmontese booth.
Oh, yeah. That was unbelievable. I mean, how many ribeyes did they cook up over the course of that 3-day period? Hundreds?
I have no idea, but I have to tell you, they did the same thing at the VIP dinner on Friday night. So they provided all of the steak for the VIP dinner on Friday night. So in answer to your question, Certified Piedmontese is a great product. I also love carnivore snacks.
Oh my gosh. They're incredible. That's the best carnivore snack I think I've ever had.
Yeah. There's a couple of companies in that space that make similar products. I think that carnivore snacks are the best. Let's see. What are some of the other ones that were there? S Fuels makes awesome products.
They do.
I don't particularly use them myself, but I mean, I've looked at the ingredients and I see the value that they bring to the table. I'm not in endurance sports anymore. So, I mean, I don't really have a need for them, but the electrolyte products, I love electrolyte products. Elementi is one of my favorites. They were supposed to be there this year, but couldn't make it.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah, that was disappointing. Let's see. Now I have to mention my own product because I make a MCT oil powder product called Ballistic Keto, which is flavored, but it's not sweetened. So we have some unusual flavors. Mexican mocha, salted caramel, not so unusual, chocolate raspberry, gingerbread cookie, and we're getting ready to release a couple more flavors. So again, these are unflavored. The intention with these products is to help people that are new in this space find a way to get healthy fats into their diets, C8 and C10s, MCTs, without added sweeteners. So they can put this in coffee, they can put it in yogurt, they can use it to bake with. And if they want sweetener, they choose the sweetener and the level of sweetness that they want. So they're not stuck with something that's pre-sweetened. So I do like that product. I have it in my house, but it is my product. So, and there's so many others. So gosh, like the HVMN, the exogenous ketones.
Oh, that's a great
I love
product.
their product.
Yeah,
I really love their product. And I mean, there are times when I'm working long hours that I use exogenous ketones if I feel that I need the extra energy. So, I
Mhm.
mean, I don't have a problem with exogenous ketones at all. The other person, Dr. Annette Bosworth, was there this year, and in her booth, she was doing, not only was she doing A1C testing, but she also makes an exogenous ketone supplement that's flavored. It's also sweetened, but her product is really good as well. So, gosh, there's so many of them.
Have you connected with the Philip Meese from the Carnivore Bar?
I have not connected with him. I tried the bars when he was early, very, very early, when he first introduced them. From what I understand, they've changed
Oh, they've gotten so
the
much.
recipe.
They've gotten so much better. There's like this crunchiness and creaminess to it, and also like a really good salt content. And then he does make a sweetened one with a little bit of honey. So like it's not enough to like throw you out of ketosis or anything like that.
Hmm.
But it's really good. And he sources all of his stuff from Regenerative Farms. And we actually just added him as a podcast sponsor because we have been using their bars for a period of time. And we're just like, especially when you're traveling, like the bars have so much fat in them that you could basically have 2 bars and it's like a meal replacement. So when you're traveling, it's so
Really,
convenient and nice to have on hand. So we could connect you
I
with
have
him,
to
but
try those.
he would be a good person to add for next year.
Terrific. Yeah, that would be awesome.
Um,
That would
and
be
I liked
awesome.
what you said too about your own personal keto product. Because we're both, Harry and I have really leveraged like the high fat coffee, throwing some MCT oil in there and grass fed butter. And we're
Hmm.
both close with Dr. Anthony Gustin, who founded Perfect Keto. And
Hmm.
he said very similar sentiments to what you just said, where he was like, look, I'm a real foods advocate as well. But for a lot of people, you need that bridge product that tastes good, that's going to give you the fat that will eventually get you to those end goals of eating all real foods. But even for myself, like I cook all of my meals, but there are a lot of times where I'll throw some like MCT oil powder or some chocolate collagen creamer in and blend it
Hmm.
because I know that like at a macro level, it's going to fit what I need. It's going to fuel me with a bunch of fat and it's not really going to set me back too much. And I think when you're talking about, not being overly emotional or like you can almost overdo it where you obsess too much and it's like, look,
Yeah.
it's not going to set you back. It's going to fuel you at the end of the day. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Didn't it didn't Anthony Gustin also, isn't Prime Protein his
Yeah.
product also?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've
Yeah,
heard a lot of really good things about that product. I haven't tried it.
they sponsor our podcast as well
Hmm.
too. So the nice thing about that is that as opposed to like using casein or whey, which could be inflammatory, he uses a beef protein isolate, and I think he
Right.
uses stevia as well. So there are a lot of protein powders that just don't sit well in my stomach with my colitis, and I have
Hmm.
handled that pretty well compared to other protein powders. So it's like just anecdotally, it works well for me.
Yeah. Interesting.
So there are a lot of good options. It's just, doing your own self-experimentation like you talked about and just figuring out
Hmm.
what's best for you. Something I wanted to ask you, and I just noticed this anecdotally, I didn't see a ton of people in their 20s to early 30s there. And I don't know if the data reflects that. And I was just curious if that's a big goal of yours, is to try and drive a younger audience to future versions of the conference.
Yes, definitely. Um, so historically, our event has been about 75% women,
Mm-hmm.
and the age pocket is somewhere between um, 35 and 55 has been the majority. Um, I see that changing simply because I think that younger people are starting to hear the message earlier in life about wellness and health. And I don't know if that's out of need and necessity or out of education, but it doesn't matter as long as the message is getting out there. So, yes, I would like to see younger people there. Uh, and I guess I'm going to need help
Mm-hmm.
reaching them. I've done a pretty good job of reaching the community that we have, but now I need to reach outside of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it seems like a challenging endeavor because it's a community that probably doesn't have all that much disposable income. Their health is naturally a little bit better just because they're younger and they have youth on their side.
Right. They can recover faster from the damage that they're creating every day.
Right. But it does seem like the younger generation is coming around to a few different health movements. Like in particular, I think that the younger generation is a little bit less excited about like binge drinking culture, which I think hopefully has peaked because I think it's
Hmm.
hugely detrimental to a lot of people. And yeah, I mean, you see it on social media. There's a lot of these influencer accounts that are just much more health focused. So
Hmm.
there is a pocket there that I think are really paying attention to this thing, which is great. I mean, the epidemic that we have in our country is really centered around, the health problems that people are running into at earlier and earlier ages. So if
Right.
we continue to spread that message, that's great.
Yeah. I'd love your input on how to reach them.
Yeah, it's something that we spend a lot of time thinking about because we're both 28, so we graduated school around 5-6 years ago. And I
Hmm.
agree with Harrison that I do think well, I think as you start to hit your late 20s, you start to realize, okay, I don't need to go out every Friday and Saturday night. But at the same time, like there are so many of our friends where after they graduated college, people that played college sports at a high level, their health is literally just doing this and they have no
Hmm.
idea how to eat. They're just, especially like I used to live in New York City. So many friends are just Uber eating everything. They're not cooking any of their own meals. They're not thinking they're ingesting seed oils. There's no intention there, but they also don't necessarily know where to start. So like,
Sure.
being able to point them in a direction like you all or our podcast and just start to take some of those basic principles of, eat more quality animal protein, cook your own meals, use healthy animal fats, walk 10,000 steps a day. It's just so valuable. So that's actually something
Hmm.
we should think about offline is how can we help you attract more of that younger target demographic for future conferences?
Yeah. The more people I can reach, the better. Um, I love the thought of that. I know that for every person that attends KetoCon, I know they're going to go home and make a difference with at least one other person,
Yeah.
one additional person. So for every person that's there, I know that I'm going to impact double that number. But I would really love to grow the number of people that are there so that that number gets bigger and bigger. And you know how things take off once someone hears a message that really resonates with them and they just tell a few people, it grows so quickly.
Oh man.
And I'd just love to see that happen in this space where we could really make a difference. And I know that there are a lot of influencers in this space that are doing that. Um, so I think that my efforts combined with theirs and everyone that attends and speaks and participates, I really think a big difference can be made. We can make big impacts.
Mm.
It's really encouraging too that 75% of the audience at KetoCon is female because I think somewhere between like 7 to 80% of people that go vegan are female. And we've
Hmm.
had a number of guests that are women that were formerly plant-based that have made the switch to more animal-based style of eating. And they've just mentioned anecdotally just the way that their PMS symptoms improve, their hormone health improved, like you talked about, just their
Hmm.
overall like vitality, the quality of their skin. So that's actually, I wasn't expecting the percentage of women to be so high at KetoCon, but that seems like that's a great step in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, I think that stems from the fact that we started as an event that was dedicated just to the ketogenic, and we use the word diet.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that was why we ended up with such a large percentage of women in the beginning. Uh, but that is changing, and we did have a lot more men there this year than we normally do, but the overall percentage is still pretty much the same. Um, and I can relate to those past guests of yours because in my journey, I did that too. I did the vegan, I did the raw vegan.
Wow. Mm.
I did it all, all, even the dangerous stuff. I've done it all. So yeah, the fact that we could make a difference for younger people, um, that's really going to have a snowball effect because if women get healthier when they're younger, they're going to have healthier children.
Mm.
And those
Absolutely.
children are going to be healthier and they're going to have healthier children. And then this track that we've been following of metabolic disease could turn around. If it could turn around. We
Absolutely.
could actually win this against the big food product manufacturers.
Yeah. And that's actually really how we got started on this whole, podcast and writing online, was just talking about food history and the different things that have happened over the course of the past several decades to put us in the situation where we are now. And what gets us excited and optimistic about the future is exactly what you just talked about, where it's like, what sort of positive externalities happen when you empower a mother to start promoting feeding her child healthier? And that personal empowerment around food is, I think, probably the most empowering thing you can do for yourself. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's not just a matter of feeling good because you made the right choices. You also feel good because you are putting nourishing food in your body. And for people who are listening, I think that once you kind of take control of your health, everything else just feels, even the other challenges outside of, whether it's in your work life, family life, whatever, they become easier. You have the
Mm-hmm.
energy to overcome them. So that's what gets us excited. And it sounds like you're similar, and maybe share that optimism.
I definitely do. I definitely do. It's what keeps me motivated to keep doing this, because it's a lot of hard work, and making a difference doesn't happen easily. But at the end of the day, I mean, what else is more important?
Totally. And another thing to that point that inspires us about you is the fact that you said you were in your early 50s working at a huge corporate bank and made that decision to follow your passions. And I think it's interesting because you talk to a lot of people that are millennials that are in our age demographic. And I would say 8 out of my 10 of my friends, you ask them about, hey, how do you like your corporate job? They'll say, oh, I like it. It's okay, but it's not my passion. So I think that
Mm-hmm.
you're a great example of like, it's never too late to find that thing that really calls you and just, pull the plug and go all in. Cause it sounds like you're way happier chasing this than you were just working for a bank where if you died, they would
Yeah,
have your role replaced within 2 weeks.
right. Definitely, definitely. And in the corporate space, especially in global banking, I always felt like every time there was bad news in the market, or in on the news, I always felt like I was just waiting for the axe to fall
Mm-hmm.
all the time. I literally used that saying, I'm just waiting for the axe to fall. So no, I didn't like living like that. And you're right, it's not too late. I no matter what path you're on, it it really only takes one decision to change it.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Just do one thing different and it changes. So yeah, I was gutsy that I jumped ship. Uh, it was the right time and the right place for me. I probably wouldn't have had the courage to do it when my kids were your age, because they were in college and I was paying for it. So
Yes.
Right.
I wouldn't have had the courage to do it, but I did then, and now here I am. And yeah, I'm super motivated to see people that are your age that are making decisions that are so much more educated than the decisions that I made. So you're making decisions about your health. You have so much more knowledge about how to take care of yourself than I did at 28 years old. And
Mm.
so that in itself is going to be huge 20 years from now, because you're going to impact everybody that you come into contact with, every single person, both of you. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's one of the beauties of the internet, just having access to so much information, but it's also this double-edged sword where now everyone has an opinion, and there is almost an oversaturation of information out there where, there's probably a Meat Mafia podcast on the other side of the aisle talking about eating a certain way that's different than
Mm-hmm.
what we promote. So
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that in the end, the truth, and like the truth around health kind of will ultimately prevail. Like, eating real foods is kind of the basis of our existence. So if someone's promoting something other than that, then I think that they're probably not going to be around for too long.
Right. Or they'll change what they're promoting.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Robin, what's the best way for people to connect with you just to learn a little bit more about the ketogenic companies that you're running? I know you mentioned that there's some early bird pricing for KetoCon coming up. Could you give us a little more
Mhm.
information into that?
Sure. The KetoCon website is ketocon.org. We are wrapping up the 2023 updates to that website right now. So by the very latest, the end of next week, which is September 9th, we will have launched the website, and early bird ticket sales will be launched. The early bird ticket sale price is $100 for the 3-day pass, and that covers everything that's involved in the event. And they will be available. The early bird ticket sales will be available for until the end of October, and then we start the small increment increases by $25, $50 until at the event the entry fee for the 3-day ticket is $300.
I mean,
That's
$100
KetoCon.
$100 for a 3-day event is an absolute steal for the amount of speakers that you're bringing to that event.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, but we want to make it available. We want as many people as possible there. And if that's what it takes, then we'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're battling the virtual community that, there's all these information plugs virtually, but there's no better way to actually make this community building and also just lifestyle change by going in person, meeting people who are also doing similar things, coming into contact with products that you can incorporate in your lifestyle. I know Brett and I have a ton of value just walking through there. So we're excited about 2023. We're both going to be living in Austin at that point. So we'll
really
be there. Yeah.
Yes.
So
okay.
We're excited about it. So we will we'll definitely be there. So looking forward to that.
Well, thank you. I'm looking forward to it as well. The experience, I'm trying to think of a really poignant way of comparing a virtual event to a live event. And I think that, when we did KetoCon online in 2020, we were sitting in front of a camera, very similar to this, recording presentations and then delivering it via virtual download. And I did not feel, I wasn't able to gauge the impact that made. The only thing I could do was I could access to see how many people actually watched the recordings. So, and I've experienced this myself. When I sign up for something online, I'm usually distracted by something else on my desktop while that's happening.
Definitely.
If I sign up for something online that's free, chances are at least 90% of the time, something's going to come up where I don't attend the free event. So I look at these free things as they bring great value if the people actually attend.
Yes.
But when you go to a live event, it's kind of like, I know you experience this, but I'm trying to portray this. I'm trying to communicate this to your listeners. When you walk into a room that is full of people that are excited to be there, you immediately pick up on that energy. The people that attend this event are excited to be there because they either want to see people that they've met online that they've never met in person. They're coming to learn, and they've invested in themselves to put themselves in an environment where they can absorb all this information. They're coming to meet speakers that they know are going to be there. And the speakers that come to KetoCon are not walking off the stage and leaving. They stay and hang out with the community. That was one thing about the great thing about the speakers that are in this space is that they really, they're there to build their own brand as well, but they know they have a following and they want to meet those people in person.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the difference is just, it's kind of like night and day. If you told me you left with 20 contacts, I walk away with pockets full of contacts, new people that I have cell phone numbers for, new ideas, new business ideas, new collaborations, new product ideas, just new marketing ideas. All of those things happen at an event where you're kind of immersed in that energy. And that's what we're trying to bring to the table. And that's why I recommend that if you are looking to make a difference in your own life, your own health and wellness, that you attend an event like this so that you can pick up on that energy.
Totally. And that's something that we both very strongly believe in, is like this serendipity that comes from these in-person events, and not knowing ahead of time who you're going to meet or build relationships, but trusting that it's there. That's why, like, as we're building out this Meat Mafia brand, we're going to as many good conferences in person as possible and investing our own money to do that, because the ROI for us on the few that we've been to so far has been so high. And you're not just saying this as the creator of the person that's running KetoCon. I saw it with my own eyes. Like, we got to talk with Dr. Baker for like almost an hour after one of his sessions, but then he's just walking the floor. So I was seeing like dozens of people go up and talk to him, and he's giving, he's having full conversations with people. So it's like, you get to meet all these people. Like Dr. Bill Schindler was there with his wife. He wrote Eat Like
He
a
is
Human.
amazing.
He's unbelievable. And he's leading these sessions. But then at one point he was just sitting there in the booth by himself. So Harry and I just went up and had like a 15-minute conversation with him and got him to come on the podcast. But there's like hundreds of examples of opportunities like that over the course of 3 days.
Yeah. I'm really glad you got to connect with him. He's one of my favorite people. He is so down to earth, and so sincere and real. Like when you talk to him, it's kind of like talking to your neighbor.
Yeah.
But when he agreed to speak at KetoCon, I was like, oh my God, someone from National Geographic is going to speak at KetoCon. How can I live up to this?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a phenomenal human being. I love his messaging and what he brings, the value that he brings.
We'll have to send you our conversation with him, because he's just like this person who's so enthusiastic about what he's doing and what he's talking about. I mean, you've met him. It was such a great conversation. But I think to what you guys were talking about too, like even just getting to meet other people who attend the event. Like I remember Brett and I went up and asked a question to Dr. Anthony Chaffee, and then after the question, like 10 people went up and started asking Brett questions about what he had just asked. So that you don't get that in a virtual setting.
Right.
And then we knew the people for the next 2 days. So it was like, you would say hi to them, you continue to build the relationship. So I think even that sort of thing is really important. So we just appreciate everything that you're doing and what you're building, because we think that there's such a strong place for it in this post-COVID world where we're now able to start having in-person events again.
Yeah, I'm excited about next year. And I really appreciate the fact that you guys came and your input about your experience. It means a lot to me. So thank you.
Of course. Yeah. And thank you for doing the podcast. And hopefully we'll get the opportunity to properly connect in person next time as well.
Awesome. I would look forward to it.
Awesome. Thanks, Robin.
Thank you.